Hello, everybody. It's September 21st, 2025, and this is a first for me. I'm going to do a book review. Now, this isn't something that comes out of left field. I have been thinking about doing Bob Daisley's for fact's sake for a long time. I got to kind of read it again. So that'll be coming up at some point in the future. But this one, Behind the Mask, Kiss book. And I had no plans to do this. This came yesterday in from Amazon, and I have this book. I had this book. I read this so much that it fell apart, and I was like, okay, well, I need to, I threw it away because it literally pages were falling out and whatnot. That's how often I reread this book, and so I got it again yesterday on Amazon because I absolutely love it. Now, they've all written books. All four of them have written books. I've read Paul's and I've read Ace's. Be honest with you, I don't remember much about Ace's. Paul's is pretty good. But this, for me, is the definitive Kiss biography. And the reason why is about a third of the book is them in the 70s and the early 80s, and then they do an album by album, almost absolute track by track. Now, there's not every single song from every single album on here, but it's pretty damn close. And it's not only the band, and they give rankings and stars, Gene and Paul for sure. All four guys do. There's an album I think that one of them doesn't, but whatever. But you have the producers, you have people who are like embedded in the band. Like, I'm just flipping through pages. Sean Delaney talks a lot in this book. Love him or hate him, Vinnie Poncia talks a lot in this book. Of course, Bob Ezrin talks a lot in this book. Michael James Jackson, yeah. Vinnie Vincent talks a lot in this book. So this book is for me the definitive Kiss book. Now, it ends with Psycho Circus, and really, that's fine because at least for me, Sonic Boom and Monster aren't good, so it doesn't really matter. But they also have a lot of people, Joe Perry, a lot of people are in here. Joe Perry talks in here about Kiss, Ozzy's in here. Let's see. Again, I'm just thumbing through things. Roger Daltrey is in here. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys is in here talking. Paul Rogers. I said Joe Perry. Brad Whitford. So yeah, there's a ton of people that talk and tell stories about Kiss. Joey Ramone. So that part's good. I just kept rereading the parts with the albums, and I think and they're honest for the most part, because there was really nothing to gain for them to do their usual Kiss spin. Now, there's a couple things, obviously, that I don't buy. The first thing is on Psycho Circus. Gene and Paul lay all the fault of it not being a true Kiss album on Bruce Fairbairn. Bull. Gene and Paul own that band. Gene and Paul wanted wanted Ace and Peter on that album. They would have been on that album for all the tracks. Don't say it was Bruce Fairbairn, and they're trying to push it off on him. Let me see if I can find something exact. I've got Carnival of Souls. Now, what's Bruce Kulick does say that how much he really likes this album in there. God, I'm blind as a bat. But take my word for it, they do try to push this off that it's that the reason that it wasn't the four of them, it was because of Bruce Fairbairn. And then, of course, if you read Paul's book, he really goes in and nukes, especially Peter. The other thing is, let me get to it. Paul plays down Vinnie Vincent's contribution to the resurgence of Kiss. And when you get to Animalize, I want to say it perfectly. We're alive. Dynasty. Come on. I did this on the fly, guys. I was not... look it up. Oh, maybe it wasn't Analyze. He goes, all right, Paul Stanley says, I give Lick It Up 4 stars. Lick It Up is a good album. Creatures is a great album. Um, but it proves that Lick It Up was proof that people hear with their eyes. Well, again, Vinnie Vincent was all over Creatures as well, but Animalize. Oh, okay. Paul Stanley, Animalize. I'd give Animalize 4 stars. It's better than Lick It Up. I think Heavens on Fire is good enough on its own. I took over the reins on this record because I really had no choice. And then he goes into how Gene was in Hollywood land. But my point is, he makes a point to say that Animalize was better than Lick It Up. I'm sure Animalize is a good album. I am not one of the people that dislikes Animalize, but it's a middle of the road album for Kiss. It's got Out of the Fire is or Into the Fire is by far the best song on the album, probably one of my favorite Kiss songs of all time. And yes, I do love Heavens on Fire, but Lick It Up is a much, much better album. I mean, it is a much more solid album all the way through. And I think that is Paul's way of just kind of playing down this notion that Vinnie Vincent was really the saving grace when it comes to Kiss. And, Vinnie's nuts, and he's a jagbag. He screwed a lot of his fans out of money. But Kiss also had used him. He came back and helped write on both Hot in the Shade and Revenge. So, they knew he was talented in that regard. Just an utter nutcase. But again, it goes into it gives a great perspective from so many different people. Then again, when you get into these 80s albums, Desmond Child talks about his involvement. They talk about, what does Gene say about The Elder? What does he say? It's a bad Kiss album. Okay. Gene says about The Elder, as a Kiss record, I'll give it a 0. As a bad Genesis record, I'll give it a 2. And I agree with that. I think, again, The Elder has grown on people, and The Elder is... Remember, The Elder was hated. Hated. People have kind of grown into that album a little bit, but it's still not a good album. But Gene, I think, hit the nail on that. It was a second-rate Genesis album where they were trying to do this concept. And then, of course, when you go into like the classics like Love Gun, they go into depth detail. And again, they go almost song by song. Ace tells a story about Shock Me, and just it's great. Absolutely. This is just a great book. And I was like, I got to do a quick little video on this. Pick this up. If you're into I am not a reader at all. I do not read, and I've read this thing a million times. But before you grab any of the 4 guys' books, I would grab this. This is really great. Highly, highly recommend Kiss Behind the Mask. All right. I will see you soon. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Bye.